Straight
How I came to lean into systematized discipline. What is that? Where it came from? Why me? Why am I the one who talks about it? I'm going to answer all those questions here today. So the explanation I'm going to give you here today will also double as an origin story of sorts, explaining why this is the place and the topic upon which I have chosen to plant my flag professionally, this systematized discipline thing. This is something that I've been doing even before I gave it a title. And if you've been following my material for any amount of time, you may have been able to tell this reading between the lines. Now that I'm explaining it, it should make perfect sense to you. Before I had any brand or business talking about any of these things, I was already living this before I could even label it. So the good news for you is that now I am both giving it to you, I'm explaining it to you, and I'm putting a label on it. So there is no confusion. So I can explain it to you, I can teach it to you, I can teach it to others who may need it. So you can pass this message on to anyone who you think could benefit from understanding this, and not only understanding it, but also applying it, using it, and getting the results from it. Because that's really what we want. It's not the understanding, it's the results that come from the understanding and the subsequent action that come from that understanding. So let's get to it. Point number one. Today's topic, once again, is how I came to lean into this topic, of systematized discipline. Well, number one thing is that this was baked into me from my childhood. So whenever people ask me, often when I'm doing interviews or when I'm on other people's shows or other people's platforms, once I've explained a little bit about myself and a little bit about what I do, often there's the flashback. Someone asks, well, where'd this come from? Where'd it start? How'd you grow up? How were you raised? People want to know, like, what were the seeds that were planted for this person becoming this type of person? And the answer to that, when you ask me, is always the same question. It's my parents, my mother and father. I come from a two-parent household. Both of my parents worked traditional jobs, basically. They both did some side hustle, side gigs, small business things as well. But for the most part, they were both full-time 9-to-5 workers. And the reason why that matters is because I could tell from context clues, neither of my parents ever said it in so many words, but I could tell from context clues that my parents were not super excited about going to their 9-to-5 jobs every day. Yet they went to work. And when they would go to their jobs, first of all, my dad, he worked as basically manual labor. He worked at what was essentially a factory. And he worked, the building that he worked at, the office, like the corporate people who wore suits, and the factory people who would wear, they would get their clothes dirty, their hands dirty, like my dad. The building, it was the same building. So the office was on one side and the factory was on the other side. My dad was in the factory side. And I saw the kind of work he did. I knew what kind of work he did. And he was pretty good at it because he did it for 30 years probably. At the same time, there was nothing glamorous about his job. It was not easy work. It was not, I wouldn't call this work fun. It was actually very dirty work. You know, that TV show Dirty Jobs. It wasn't that kind of dirty. It wasn't that dirty, but it wasn't a clean job either. So I knew what kind of work he was doing. I knew this wasn't the kind of thing anybody's going to get super excited about doing. My mother worked in an educational space. And even though that's her thing that she always wanted to do, still works in education and still does education stuff to this day. My dad's retired, but my mom, when I was younger, she sometimes worked at jobs that when I was a child, actually, I would explain it this way. When I was a child, my mom would come home from work and she would get on the phone and talk. I don't know who she was talking to. I think she was talking to her mother, which would be my grandmother, about her day at work, basically. And she did this every single day. I don't know how women come up with so much material to talk about, but my mom would get on the phone and talk for hours on the phone to whoever she was talking to. And I think most of the time she was talking to my grandmother. And my grandmother came from the educational space as well. And not for nothing, my sister is now in the educational space. So it's got passed down. And my mom I would often overhear her talking shit about her coworkers. And she wasn't trying to be quiet when she was talking. She was talking full-throated, full voice. She'd be talking shit about her coworkers and who she didn't like and how somebody at the job had done the wrong thing. And I guess my grandma would be commiserating with her because my mom sounded like she was being supported on the phone with the things that she was saying. It was just a full-out conversation of her talking shit about her coworkers. So even though I know she loved being in education, I don't think she always liked how and where it was happening and with whom she was doing it when it came to my mother's career. The point of me explaining all of that to you is to explain that neither of my parents ever complained about their jobs. My mom complained on the phone to who she was talking to, but she never complained to me like, hey, I hate my job, or I hate this coworker, or this bitch is getting on my nerves. She never said those things. I heard her saying it, She didn't try to hide that she was saying it, but she wasn't talking to me. My dad never complained about his job either, and nor did either of my parents, despite the fact they got up and went to work every day at jobs that they probably weren't super excited about. They never complained about the fact that they had to do what they were doing, because they did what they needed to do to take care of their families and to raise their kids. That set the example for me of showing up every day and doing work, which is exactly what I say when I talk about discipline. Showing up day by day and doing the work. That's where I got it from. And there was nothing exciting or sexy about the kind of work that, especially that my dad was doing. This is the kind of work that you get the oil and grease and dirt under your fingernails that no matter how many showers you take is still in there. That's the kind of work that he did. And on top of that, another thing about my father, he was into music, is into music, and he would do music as a side hustle. So he still does music now that he's retired from his full-time job. Now he just has music, and he would go to work from 9 to 5, then he would get off work, and then he would do music gigs at night. So my dad would do music gigs at night, probably 3, 4, 5 nights a week. And they were almost always at night. So his music gig might start at 7 o'clock. So he'd get off work at 5 and he would go straight from work to the music gig. And then the music gig would be done. He'd come home at like midnight. So sometimes I would go the whole day and I would not actually see my dad, but I would hear him. And there would be signs that he had been there. And I would hear him early in the morning, waking up to go to work in the morning, because he would wake up even before we did to go to school. And there were several nights a week when I might not see him because he had a music gig. And there were some nights, of course, when he didn't. And the thing is, that matters because my dad would sometimes only sleep like 4 hours a night. So he would get home at 12 o'clock. He had to get up at like 4 o'clock so he could leave the house at 5 so he could be at his job. And again, he would get his job early. It wasn't technically 9 o'clock. He would get there earlier. So probably get there earlier so he could leave earlier so he can go to do his work and stuff. And he worked outside of the city of, I come from Philadelphia. He worked outside of the city of Philadelphia. His job was probably in a car, maybe 45 to 60 minutes outside of the city, outside of home. And there were times when he took public transportation to get to his job because he didn't have a car. And that takes even longer. My mom, again, she would run a small business for some years. She worked in schools in other years. And both of my parents, despite the non-sexiness of their professions, were highly proficient at their work. My dad, even though it was a factory job that was unglamorous, he was pretty good at his job. It's one reason why he was able to keep it for 30 years. And he probably had some seniority benefits by the time he retired. He never moved into the office level, the executive level at the company, but he had some seniority benefits. Like he was the kind of guy that if somebody got hired, the new hire would shadow my dad, so my dad could show him how to do the job if he was doing a similar job to my dad, because my dad knew his stuff. So my parents were both in their jobs, usually known as reliable, competent, dependable in the workplace. They were really good at what they did. So all of this that you see in me when it comes to the discipline, showing up and being proficient at my work, I had good role models. That's the first place that it comes from. And anytime anybody asks me, what's the foundation? Well, there it is. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is how I came to lean into systematized discipline. Number 2, personal necessity. All right, this is the next time that this came into play. So when I actually started using, I didn't understand it then, I can explain it to you now, but when I actually first started utilizing the stuff that I was seeing my parents modeling happened around the time that I got involved in sports. Okay, so when I started playing basketball in my early teens, it's about age 14, I wasn't very good naturally. I didn't have anyone around to teach me basketball. Even though my parents were actively involved in any activities that I or my sister were involved in, there's only so much your parents can teach you about something that they aren't into and that they have never done themselves. My mom is like 5 feet 7 inches tall. My dad is about 5'8". I'm 6'4". I'm bringing up their heights because my parents are not basketball people. My dad likes basketball. He follows basketball. He even goes to a basketball game every year or something like that. But I mean, like an NBA basketball game to see his favorite team. But they're not basketball players. My dad couldn't teach me basketball because he couldn't play basketball. He was more into, if we're talking about something actively playing or coaching or teaching, he was more on the baseball side. So he couldn't teach me. My mom's not a basketball player. My sister don't play basketball. And in the neighborhood that I come from in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, also known as Mount Airy or Uptown, there were probably 3 or 4 local coaches at the local rec center, but there's 100 boys in the neighborhood who are all trying to play basketball, and the coaches could only give attention to those who showed promise from a very early age. I was not one of those kids who showed a lot of promise from a very early age. So I was pretty much on my own to figure it out. If I was going to figure out basketball, I was going to have to figure it out on my own. Now, the only way I would get attention from those coaches is if I started to figure it out and I started to show that I might be worth the investment, or I'd just be on my own and I had to figure it out the entire way through. And for the most part, it ended up being the latter. I did start to show some promise, but not so much. Basically, by the time I started to show promise as a basketball player, when it came to the perspective of my neighborhood basketball coaches, I was already 17, damn near 18 years of age. And by that point, if you're just now showing promise, you're probably not going to go anywhere in basketball. And I tell this all the time when I'm doing interviews, is that by the time I got out of high school, someone might have said, wow, congrats that you made the basketball team finally, and you look like you might be somewhat of a player, but you're already 18 and you're just now starting to show something. You're probably not going to go anywhere in basketball. Reasonably and logically, that person would be accurate. Now, I just happened to be dumb enough that I kept trying and I was able to make it happen. But I digress from the main point here. I was on my own to figure it out in sports. And the reason why I was able to figure it out is because I took the example that was given to me by my parents of showing up every day and doing the work. I just applied that to basketball. And I happened to be lucky enough that it ended up working because I didn't have any blueprint to follow. This is the time that I started playing basketball. We're talking the mid 1990s, everybody. So that matters because there's no Instagram, there's no YouTube. It's not like I go on YouTube and watch Dre Baldwin videos for a couple hours and then go to the gym or the playground and try to do the same stuff that I saw Dre doing in his videos, because there is no YouTube. There is no Dre Baldwin on YouTube in 1999. There's no Dre Baldwin on YouTube. What's YouTube? Not a thing. So I was doing this on my own and just figuring it out. The good thing that I got lucky with when it comes to basketball is that you can practice basketball by yourself. You don't need any special equipment. As long as you have a basketball and you have a court to practice on, you can effectively practice basketball, which is what I spent most of my teen years doing. If I was not at school or I was not at a part-time job that I got my first job when I was 15 years of age. That was a mandate from my parents. If you want anything extra other than food, clothing, shelter, you pay for it with your money from your job. So if I wasn't at school or I wasn't at my part-time job, I was on the basketball court. That's the only place. You ask anybody from my neighborhood who knows me, they'll tell you the only place you ever saw Dre was either going to or coming from school, at his job, or on that basketball court. You didn't see me anywhere else. So since I wasn't one of the kids who showed promise, I had to figure it out on my own. And even though I didn't have a lot of early success, as I already explained to you, I was foolish enough to keep trying, ignorant enough to keep trying, to think that maybe this will work out and that I might develop some skill in basketball. And that's exactly what happened. And I've always had, all humans have, what we call mirror neurons, was the ability to watch somebody else do something and then you can do a facsimile of what they did. Maybe not exactly as they did it, but maybe you can get close. I've always been pretty good at that. And I use those mirror neurons. I will watch somebody on TV or I see somebody at the park do something on Tuesday. Then I come to the park on Wednesday and I would try to practice doing it by myself. And this is how I slowly started to develop basketball skill, on top of the fact that the actual skills needed to play basketball are not so numerous. If you were to listen to someone who wants to tell you how certain basketball players are so skilled, they're going to make it seem as if everything you need to do in basketball, there are so many different pieces. It's not really. In basketball, you need to be able to dribble the basketball. That's a skill you should have. Dribble the basketball with either hand with equal amounts of dexterity. You need to be able to make a layup. That's a shot when you're standing right next to the basket with either hand, left or right. Even if you're right-handed, you should be able to make the layup with your left hand and vice versa. You need to be able to shoot the basketball. So that means if you're far away from the basket, can you throw the ball in accurately enough that it can go in the basket a considerable or at a reasonable rate? All right. Can you keep the other team honest to believe that you can actually make a shot from outside of the basket area? That's called shooting. And you need to just understand basic fundamentals like how to grab a rebound, how to play defense, and then how to work within a team concept, which requires team experience. That's the number of skills you need to actually play basketball are generally very small in number. They may not be so easy to master, but the number of different things is not so much. It's not that many things. That's the good thing that I got lucky with when it came to basketball. I wasn't doing a sport that required a whole lot of super detailed technical teachings that you must learn from having somebody teach you. Basketball, you could teach a whole lot of it to yourself, by yourself. Had I been trying to be let's say, a boxer or a tennis player, it would have been a lot harder for me to figure it out on my own than it was with being a basketball player, if that makes sense. So I was lucky enough to be able to do all those things. Again, 100% on my own volition and by choice. And what this has to do with systematized discipline is that I kept showing up to the park and working on my game, even though there was no tangible outcome or tangible proof that said me working on my game was doing anything or taking me anywhere. I just kept doing it. And then I went on, I played 1 year in high school, didn't do anything. Went on to play in college at the Division III level where I walked on. That means nobody invited me. Nobody was checking for me to show up. I just showed up. People were like, who's this guy? And I started playing. And they said, those guys can actually play. And I played my way onto the team as an uninvited guest. That's how I got onto a team playing in college. I was already a student, but the basketball team didn't know who I was. I just showed up as a student and, hey, this guy's good. He can be on the basketball team. But what really set all this in stone was none of the things that I just told you. It was the internet. Now, I told you in 1990, the mid-1990s, there's no internet to go to reference if you want to learn how to play basketball. However, by the time I started playing basketball professionally, I got my first professional job in 2005, there was a new website up. This website said you could put as much video as you want up there for free, and we won't even charge you to put the video up. As a matter of fact, later on, a couple of years down the line, this same website said, not only will we not charge you to publish video on our site, we will pay you to put video up on our site. And that site, you may have heard of it, it's called youtube.com. I started putting my workout videos on YouTube in the mid 2000s, because by this point I'm playing overseas. So now I have some credibility to my name. So 5 years earlier, I was sitting at the end of the high school bench as a senior, not playing. 5 years later, I'm a professional basketball with all this basketball player who has a lot of credibility if anybody knew who I was. Now, mind you, YouTube's not some big website in 2005. It's just some niche site. Once I started putting the content up there, slowly an audience started to gather to watch me on YouTube. Some people listening to the show to this day found me through the YouTube videos back in the day when I was talking basketball. And at this point, the players who are watching me, they don't know anything about my background. They just know this guy looks like he can play now. They don't know anything about my history. They just know I'm looking at him now. This guy can play. He can probably teach me some things. So that's how quickly this started to turn around. Now people are coming to me thinking that I have all the answers when just 10 to 15 years earlier, I was wondering if anybody would give me the answers. So on YouTube, this is where I started to realize that this systematized discipline of mine, that again, I wasn't calling it that then, had actual value. That because everything that these players were coming to me for, can you show me how to dribble? Can you show me how to dunk? Can you tell me how to practice? Can you tell me how often to practice? Can you tell me how to come to the gym and practice when I don't feel like practicing? These are the kind of questions I was getting from basketball players. How can I make the basketball team? How can I walk on to play in college? Dre, I want to play overseas too. How can I do it? The kind of questions these players were asking me were all based in things that I had shown them based on the development that I had done through showing up every single day and doing the work in a systematic way. Now it validated everything I had been doing up to that. The first 23 years of my life, or really the last 9 years up to age 23, were validated by what happened on YouTube from 2005 to about 2009. This is the early years of me being on YouTube, before you could make money from YouTube. 2005, 2009, there was no money to be made on YouTube. The money didn't start till 2009. And I was still putting out content. That's another piece that you should not overlook. There was no money being made. I was still putting material up and building an audience and building the know, like, and trust factors with that audience with no money being made. Now, once these players started asking me these things, I started answering the questions because I had every question they asked, I had an answer. So people were assuming that I was this player who had always been good and I had been properly trained from the beginning. Not true. And I explained that to the players. And at the same time, I had the insight to realize that there was something interesting about what I was showing because it gave them the impression that I really knew my stuff, and I had taught it to myself. It was told me that I'm pretty good at teaching myself, at least when it comes to basketball. At least when it comes to basketball, I'm pretty good at teaching myself. So that told me I could probably teach other people. So this is why I invested the time that I did from 2005 through 2015, because I saw this from the beginning, in videos that were mostly focused on basketball. So that 10 years that I was playing basketball, I was posting content that was 99% basketball. And eventually I started to pull the mindset pieces from my basketball experience and sharing those with my mostly basketball audience. And it was that mostly basketball audience that was getting the mindset stuff. Those same, let me back up. Let me say that a different way. It was the mindset stuff that I was giving to and making for the mostly basketball audience that started to attract non-basketball people into my world. Because they would see the mindset stuff or hear the mindset stuff and say, even though I'm not interested in basketball, Dre, the way you talk about mindset is actually very useful for me. Even though you might have made it, they didn't say this part, even though I was making it for the basketball players because they're the ones who had asked for it. They were asking, how do I show up every day to work out? How do I get the confidence of playing the game the way I play in practice? How do I get myself to keep trying even though I just got cut from the high school team again? They were the ones asking that question. So I made mindset videos talking discipline, confidence, mental toughness. I started talking about those things, goal setting, competition, being ready for your next opportunity, preparing ahead of time, doing your homework. I started talking about those things for athletes because that's the same things athletes need to do, the same things everybody else needs to do. I came to realize. So when I started making those messages for athletes, people who didn't play sports said, hey, that stuff helps me too. And I said, okay. This is an internal conversation I have with myself. When I decide to walk away from basketball, I have something else to walk into. See, a lot of athletes don't walk away from their sport because they don't have anywhere else to go. I already knew where I was going to go when I was still playing. This is around 2010 when I started talking about mindset for athletes. And it's also around the time that people who didn't play ball started finding me on YouTube. And I said, if I ever decide to walk away from the basketball world, which I knew I would do, I knew I wasn't going to be a trainer or a coach. It's just I don't have the makeup to do either one full time. I knew I wanted to do something else. And when these people who didn't play ball started telling me this helps me, I said, what I'm going to do when I'm done playing is I'm going to take the mindset pieces that help athletes and I'm going to help everybody else who are not athletes with the same mindset stuff that the athletes need. Because clearly, everybody needs this. That was the idea. I had that in my head in 2010. I didn't stop playing basketball until 2015. So at the same time, YouTube says, we'll pay you money the more your videos get viewed. Now, the reason I have to tell this part is because, again, we're talking about systematized discipline. YouTube said the more videos you put out or the more your videos get viewed, the more money you'll make. So I figured, okay, why not just put out more videos? They give me a chance to get more views, and more views equals more money. And hey, everybody has bills. Let me get this YouTube money. All right, why not? Problem. Up till 2009, I was not putting out videos consistently. I was putting out videos sporadically. Whenever I felt like putting out a video, I would put out a video. So it's not like I was waking up every day with this grand scheme that I was going to put out this video and that video. There was no marketing plan or content publishing plan in 2009 when I was putting videos on YouTube. That wasn't a thing. But when they said, we'll pay you money if the more your videos get viewed, I said, well, okay. I go to the gym every day. How about I just put out videos every day? I'll just put out videos every single day. If I put out video every day, that gives me more chance for my videos to get viewed. The more my videos get viewed, the more money I make. How about it? I mean, there's no guarantee they get viewed, but we might as well try it. I go to the gym every day anyway. Why not just record something new every day? Here was the problem. When you play a sport, you're doing a whole lot of the same stuff over and over and over and over again. It's highly repetitive. You're doing the same boring, tedious drills, warm-ups, cool-down routines every single day. I didn't have 365 ideas to put out a video 365 days in a row. So how the hell am I going to make this work? This is where the systematized discipline comes into play. Because here's what I figured out after about 6 months. After about 6 months of just randomly coming up with stuff, I figured out that there was a battery of drills that I could plug any new move into that basically produced 30 videos for any one idea. So in other words, if I thought of a move, let's say I come up with some basketball move, right? You don't need to understand basketball to understand this. If I can do that one move, I can then take that one move and then I can plug it into a 30 move. It's kind of like a tree of movements. So I can take this one move, now do move number one with that. Now combine this move, the new move, with move number one, then move number two, then move number three, then move number four. I came up with a 30 move system. So if I came up with one idea, that led to 30 different videos. Do you understand? This is what I started doing on YouTube, and this is 2009 going into 2010. This is how I was able to publish. If you look up my YouTube channel to this day, I don't know how many videos I have published, probably publicly between all my YouTube channels, probably close to 15,000 videos, maybe more, to this day that I have published to YouTube. And still to this day, even though I haven't put out any basketball stuff in 10 years, the bulk of those videos, the majority of those, more than 50%, are probably still the basketball things. Why? Because I came up with this formula to where I could create 30 videos a day in an hour in the gym, based on the stuff that I was doing. Now, to be clear, I wasn't going to the gym just to record videos for YouTube. I was going to the gym still doing my regular workout, still doing the repetitive same stuff every single day. I didn't put those videos out every day. The repetitive stuff I did every day. I would just take some time And while working on certain moves, I could record those pieces, and those are pieces I would clip out, and I would take those and put those on YouTube. So in other words, I came up with a system for this. Came up with a system for producing videos at a high volume output. And I was disciplined enough to show up to the gym every day. You got all the systems that you want. You still got to work the system. I still have to come to the gym every day and record that shit. So it ain't like this just happens just because I snapped my fingers. I wasn't laying in bed putting out videos. I was going to the gym every day, doing the stuff, then putting out the videos. I still had to do the work. So systematized discipline. There's a system, there's a discipline. You need both pieces. And again, I was doing this because YouTube was offering me money. That's the only reason I started doing it the way that I did it, because YouTube was offering me money. So I came up with this system, keyword, this system for producing ideas. And I'm a person, looking back, I realize that I'm a person who naturally thinks in processes, frameworks, and systems. This is just my natural way of thinking. It's my way of speaking as well. And when I came up with that, again, that led to the 15,000 or so videos that I have on the internet to this very day. At the same time, there was a need in the marketplace for that mindset piece. And that's when I knew that when I stopped playing basketball, I could take that same mindset piece and just show up every day, believe in yourself, be mentally tough to keep going, be a self-starter. Don't wait for someone to offer you an opportunity, go make an opportunity. Those same things that I utilize to make myself somebody in basketball applies to things that you do and to people who live outside of the world of basketball. I knew that while I was still playing. So my transition from athlete to no longer an athlete was a very smooth one, because I was already working on it while I was still playing, as opposed to most athletes. And again, this wasn't a costume that I was putting on. The identity that people were placing on me of this guy actually shows up all the time. This guy knows about confidence. He knows how to explain confidence. He's clearly mentally tough, and he is obviously a self-starter. That wasn't a costume that I put on when the camera turned on. That's actually who I am. If any of you knows me or has ever met me in real life off camera with nobody filming, the same way that I'm talking to you now is the same way I talk then. The same stuff that I say, same energy, same everything. So this was an easy transition for me. All right, thank God for the internet. Moving on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is how I came to lean into this concept of systematized discipline. Number 3, professional strategy. All right, this is the third reason why this happened. Professional strategy. All right, everything that I've told you so far is leading to the point that I'm making to you right here. And here's the point. As I was making basketball content every day, and people were appreciating seeing this guy showing up to practice every day, I realized that there was an opportunity in teaching people how to do it. They have the same challenge. I already touched on this point a lot in the previous point. So what I was doing when it came to the mindset piece, because you may want to know how I actually came to kind of make this mindset piece a thing. In 2010, I made the first video where I was only talking about mindset. I made a video just to talk about mindset. I'd done a few of them sporadically in the past, but this is the first time I made a video where I said, this video is just about mindset. I'm explaining mindset. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, I put the video out, and let me see if I can find it while I'm talking to you all. And when I made this video, I remember where I was. I was in the basketball gym, finishing up my workout. I just finished my workout, and I just recorded the video because I had the camera with me. And I'm looking the video up right here, see if I can find it. Here it is, I found it. Weekly motivation number 1. All right, this video, according to YouTube, came out 14 years ago from when I'm recording this. And I am in the exact spot that I said that I was. And the title is Goals, Weekly Motivation Number 1, Dre Baldwin. This video has 13,000 views and is a 1 minute and 8 seconds long. So these are not super long videos that I was putting out. And I remember at the end of the video, I said, let me see if I can play this. Maybe y'all can hear it. All right, this is a Robin Hood ad that's playing right now, but let this Nico leave all this in there.
First thing I want to tell you that can motivate you, think about your long-term goals. Don't think about small-term, only what you can see in front of you. Think about what's out there outside of what you can see, outside the scope of where you're at, your normal environment. Think about the big picture, where you want to go long-term, where you want to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, when you're done playing basketball, when you're done doing whatever career you choose. Where do you want to be? What do you want to have accomplished? What do you want to have done? What do you want to have left as a legacy in your name? So think about that long term. If you need some motivation this morning or tomorrow morning or 3 days from now, what it is that you want to do in the big picture of life. DreAllDay.com.
So that was the first weekly motivation. That was the whole video. And that came out October. Let me check that date. The official date that that was released was October 4th, 2010. That video that I just played for you. Nico, leave that whole thing in there so people can hear all that audio. And what I said to people was, hey, if y'all like this, I'll do a video like this every week. If y'all like this, I'll do a video like this every week. But if y'all don't like this, you feel like it's not necessary, then we'll just stick to sports. We'll just stick to basketball. And the overwhelming response was, Dre, keep this up. Keep doing it. And that was the first weekly motivation. I recorded, again, remember the topic here today, systematized discipline. I recorded the weekly motivation video every Monday for 400 Mondays in a row. That practice of doing those videos every Monday, 400 Mondays in a row, that laid the foundation for the person you see here today with the books and the suit and the coaching and the consulting and the speaking gigs and the TED Talks. All of that came from those weekly motivation videos coming out every week. The concept of the third day came from those weekly motivation videos. The concept of the super you, weekly motivation. The mirror of motivation came from the weekly motivation. All the things that I talk about to this day, the mental workbook came from weekly motivation. 100 mental game best practices, the mental handbook. All of these things came from the weekly motivation videos that I was putting out every single week. My book literally called Work on Your Game. A majority of the content in that book is sourced from the things I was saying in my weekly motivation videos for 400 Mondays in a row. And as I kept putting those videos out, I got better and better and better at explaining an intangible thing like mindset. Mindset is hard to explain because you can't read it, count it, or measure it. You can look at, count, and measure somebody playing basketball. It's easier to explain basketball because I can see it. You can see it. We all can look at a basketball game and see what's happening. Mindset is harder to explain because it's intangible. You can't see discipline. Discipline is not a thing you can hold in your hand. Neither is confidence, neither is mental toughness. But we all understand the value of them, especially when you need them. And as I got better and better at explaining it, and I realized that one of my gifts, bigger than my ability to play basketball, was my ability to explain things that people generally had a hard time grasping, such as mindset. I got really good at it over the course of those 400 videos. And this is why people who didn't play sports started connecting with me, because they were connecting to my ability to explain things, and it didn't matter that I played basketball and they didn't. And I, again, this is a key point, I noticed this. You see, had all that been happening and I didn't notice, it wouldn't matter, would it? The key, everybody, is that I noticed the opportunity when the people who didn't play sports started telling me, hey, I don't play sports, but this is useful for me. I didn't just say, oh, thanks, and then stick to basketball players. I said, wait a minute, there's something here. As I kept explaining the mindset piece, because here's the thing about mindset, folks. When I started talking about discipline and confidence and setting goals, like you heard in that video, when I started talking about those things, I didn't think there was anything special about it, because I thought everybody thought that way. I thought anybody who's going to be a pro at anything, anybody who's going to be good at anything, of course you got to set goals. Of course you got to show up every day. Of course you got to believe in yourself. Of course, when things aren't going well, you got to keep trying. I mean, what the hell else are you going to do? I didn't see an option B to any of these things. I didn't see an option B to being disciplined. I didn't know there was such thing. I didn't know there was an option B to being confident. I didn't know there was another alternative besides being mentally tough when things aren't working. What you going to do, quit? Well, what's the other choice? I didn't think there was an option. I never saw another option. So when I started talking about these things, I figured I was just preaching to the choir. I figured every human being on the planet looked at all these things as quote unquote common sense. I was extremely wrong, because when I started talking about them, people would respond and say, Dre, I've never heard anybody explain it that way. I've never heard anybody talk about it that way. Thank you for saying this, because I've never had anybody say that to me. Here's the key, folks. I'm not telling you that to impress you, but to impress upon you. I noticed the response. This was the opportunity. Noticing the response was where the opportunity was. That became my segue between the sports world and the non-sports business world. My secret sauce, again, was not playing basketball. My secret sauce is not being a motivational speaker. My secret sauce is my ability to break down and explain things that many people have a hard time either grasping or explaining themselves. That's my secret sauce. That's my best skill. In other words, my ability to communicate. So it makes perfect sense that I do the work that I do to this day. And I emphasize to you all the time, no matter what you do for a career, you need to master communication. The better you are at communication, the better your career will go, because you'll be able to communicate your way into better opportunities. Just today, as a matter of fact, before I started recording today, I was on a call with a person who I was connected to through a person who I know, and he is basically an executive headhunter. Those who know what a headhunter is, It's a colloquial term used for people whose job it is, or their business, is to go out and find high quality candidates for job openings. So this guy's an executive headhunter. So in other words, when a big company or university, let's say a university or some business, they're looking for a new chief marketing officer, also known as a CMO. They call this guy, the guy I was talking to on the phone. His job is he and his team, they go out and start canvassing the country or the world to find a person who might be a great candidate for this new CMO job that's paying $400,000 a year. And the people that they go look for to canvass for this job, they are not people who are out looking for a job. These people already have a job. So basically his job is to go poach someone from one job and get them to move to a different job because they're being offered a better gig. His job is go find the right person for the company who hired him to go find us an employee. And they get paid based on finding good employees. That's his job, being a headhunter. I'm bringing him up to say this, that because I asked him, because I was talking to a friend of mine who recently had to shut down a business and he's looking for a C-suite job right now, a friend of mine. And I asked this guy I'm on the phone with, his name is Ken. So I'm talking to Ken, he's the headhunter. And I said, Ken, before we ended our conversation, we were talking for about 20 minutes. I said, Ken, I happen to have a friend, and he told me what he did. I said, Ken, I happen to have a friend who's looking for a C-suite level job. I didn't really know where to point him. I said, Ken, what would you say to somebody like that guy? And here's what Ken said. He said, you got to look to your network. This is what Ken said. Ken said, if I lost my business and lost everything right now today, Dre, and I need to get a job, the first thing I'm going to do is go to my network and see who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who can help me get a job. Yes, there are opportunities to go in cold. You can pitch yourself cold. And listen, this is him talking. You can go and pitch yourself cold, but the best opportunities usually come from somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and you knowing that somebody. That's where the game is. What does that have to do with what I'm talking about here? This is communication, folks. How do you have a network? How do you build a network? You build a network because you communicate with other people, and now you know them, they know you. You like them, they like you. You trust them, they trust you. What is that called? Networking, relationships. That's how business works. Business moves on relationships. Sports world is about performance. Relationships matter, but if you can't perform, it doesn't matter who you know. In the business world, it really matters who you know. Even if you're a great performer, you got to know the right people. This is the reason why I emphasize communication. Moving on, point number 4. Today's topic, once again, is how I came to lean into this concept of systematized discipline. Number 4 is the separation system. The separation day is one of the concepts of inside the framework of what I call the third day. Now, why does the separation day matter? Well, for several reasons. Number 1, remember that I come from the sports world. In the sports world, you must figure out a way to differentiate yourself from your opponents. Otherwise, you can't win the game. Same thing happens in business. When I was talking to Ken, this guy I told you I was talking to on the phone here today, he literally asked me the question, what is your separator from other people who are talking about athletic world and how it applies to business? Because I'm not the only one. And Ken actually, he's a generation older than me, but he is an athletic guy too. And he is in the same lane that I'm in. So what would make me different from him and him different from me? You got to know. Well, one of them is what I'm talking about to you right here, systematized discipline. And I knew, here's point number 4. This is what I'm talking about here. I knew that I needed a way to separate myself from the pack. I needed it in basketball. I need it in business, still to this day. That all leads us to this point. As an athlete, everything is based on competition. Right? To find out who's the better athlete, we have a competition and we look at the scoreboard and we see who won. That's how it works in sports. I never, ever, ever played sports for fun. I always play sports to win. I never played a sport to say, let me just go have fun playing basketball today. No, I played basketball to beat whoever I was playing against. And if I didn't win, even if I had a good game, I might take some solace in some good things that I did. But the objective of the game is to win. I never played sports for fun. There are some athletes who play for fun. I never played for fun. And to compete and win, you have to separate yourself from, i.e. defeat whoever's in front of you. That's the game. Same concept applies in business. Although in business, the competition is not as direct, nor is it as black and white. In business, you don't have one clear scoreboard. You don't have a clear arbiter of who's the winner, who's the loser. Business is a little bit more, the lines are very blurry. Sports, the lines are hard and clear, and nobody's unclear on what the lines are in sports. But in business, there still needs to be a clear separation between me and anybody else whose material or approach may sound similar to mine. Because I'm not the only person in the world who played a sport and is now talking to people who don't play sports and leveraging my sports background to do so. I'm not the only one in the world doing it. So I must separate myself in some way. So let me make it extremely clear for everybody who's listening to this, who's never been clear before. I did it in real life, this systematized discipline. It removes anybody who didn't hold a professional athlete job, because I did. All right, there's a difference. I'm also living it now. I continue to live it to this day. I have codified it. I have systematized it, and I can teach it to somebody else. This separates me from the theorists. These are the people who watch sports, have followed sports, have friends who play sports, and they talk about it. Cool, but you're not me. And people who are teaching things from what they read in books, what they saw other people do, also separates me from, when it comes to presentation, and presentation matters, former athletes who look like former athletes. You get what I'm saying? I don't look like a former athlete. If you see me you see me in a suit, you may not even think I'm an athlete. I'm 6'4", so I'm not so tall that you think I have to be a basketball player. If you see me not wearing a suit, in casual clothing, like a tank top and shorts, like I'll be in this evening when I take my son out to the park, if you saw me, you would assume that I'm an athlete. And why would you assume I'm an athlete? I haven't played a professional sport in 10 years. You assume I'm an athlete because I look like one. Now, I know other athletes who are in my age bracket who look like 10 years ago. You get what I'm saying? Okay. I don't look like 10 years ago. And I'm not going to say never, but for now, let's just keep it at that. I'm not talking to you based on what I used to do, running on fumes, giving you my reserves, or remembering how it was or how I was. This is who I still am, will continue to be, and there's a label on this. Again, I just told you, systematized discipline for professionals, all about performance, discipline, and accountability. All that said, everybody, let's recap today's class, which is how I came to lean into this concept of systematized discipline. So this is an origin story of sorts, explaining to you how I got here, why I got here. Number one, baked in from my upbringing. Again, my parents showed up every day, did their jobs, even though they worked in what were essentially unglamorous positions. They still showed up every day, never bragged about it, never complained about it. Number two, personal necessity. As I got into sports, I wanted to get better, but there was no one to teach me, and I was already late to the party. So I figured the only way I could get better is just keep showing up to the park and practicing. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Luckily enough, it actually worked, and that's the reason I was able to make it as an athlete. Number three, professional strategy. I saw there was an opportunity to make money through publishing content on the internet and selling products on the internet and cultivating an audience on the internet. All of that required me to be consistently in front of my audience. That's one of the challenges of being a content creator if you want to be a professional one. I am not one, by the way. I did a whole episode explaining to you why I am not and should never be labeled as a content creator. Shout out to the content creators, but I ain't one of them. And that was episode number 3300. I am not and will never be a content creator. But I knew at that time, if I want to leverage this audience, I need to be in front of them all the time. So I got in front of them all the time. But to do that, I needed a system. I created a system to where I could create content basically at the snap of a finger without having to come up with a brand new idea all the time. That was fulfilling the necessity. That was a system. And number four, start using it as a separation system. How can I use this to make sure there's a clear difference between me and everybody else out there? That's the reason why I made it clear to you here today what my system is, why it works, where it came from, why I own it. And even if somebody else tried to copy it, they don't have the origin story to back it up. So they'll be fake. And I've had many people try to copy my shit over the years. None of them can keep it up and none of them sound right because they don't have the elements. They don't have the pieces to make it make sense. That's why it doesn't sound right when it's coming out of their mouths as opposed to coming out of mine, because I actually lived it. I got a real reason to say it. All that said, everybody, at workonyourgameuniversity.com, you can work with me directly to get this systematized discipline installed into your life, into your business, into your processes, into what you do. You can work with us on different levels. We have our courses. You can do it yourself on your own pace. We have our group programs. We have ways you can work one-on-one directly. That is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all